views the world differently. Taking photos is like showing people the lens through which I view things. 15-year-old girls go through a lot of physical and emotional changes. And now with social media, we're always looking at these really pretty, skinny, beautiful girls who have made it in the world. You see all these people doing amazing things, and I guess that's why I feel so pressured to do everything so young, is that everyone else is out there showing me the best parts of their lives. You can often see what mood I'm in from the photos that I take. There will be a lot of bad shoots where I've been in a bad headspace. When I do get negative thoughts, it's out of a sense of self, I guess. Because I've always strongly believed in me knowing who I am and what I believe in and, you know, the way that the world works through my lens. And so when I would think, you know, look at this, everybody hates you, it would be like the logical side of my brain was speaking and I would believe it. But it wasn't. They tell me that I have an emotional dysregulation disorder. It's like teenage mood swings, but on steroids. Every time I get like a little bit of an emotion, I get a lot of an emotion. So something a little bit bad goes wrong, and it's like my world is ending. And then if something a little bit happy happens, I'm bouncing and I'm singing and I'm dancing, and it's like I'm walking on sunshine. There's really no middle ground. My core insecurity is that I'm not good enough. I'm not funny enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough. And that's where my negative thoughts come from. I would think my friends don't want to be around me, they're only pretending to like me. And I would talk to people about it. I would ask my friends and be like, hey, this thing is happening to me, and I feel like this quite a lot. Do you ever get like this? They told me that they all suffer, and we all struggle, and it is really hard. But they knew that it was a little bit more serious. I started seeing a therapist more regularly, and we started figuring out the things that would help me be the best person that I could be. By understanding how it works, and by understanding the way that my mental illness reacts to everybody else, I can rationalize and I can think about it better. And now whenever I get those negative thoughts, I can tell myself, no, you're wrong. You're you, and that's okay. I'm Aurelia Torkington, and I'm 15, and I am well on my way to being a photographer, which is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
It was 3 years ago that I was hospitalised in the emergency unit under the Mental Health Act for my anorexia. Little did I know this was the beginning of a battle to keep my life. The terrifying part of this was not my freakishly low heart rate or the shutting down of internal organs, but the extent to which my mind excused the possibility of death. I bring you the story of my illness so far, 3 years and 5 hospitalizations later, as a message of hope. It's sort of difficult to pinpoint why it is that I got anorexia. I believe there are a whole lot of factors. Genetics, my environment, and just the culture at school when I was younger. At my first admission, I was very afraid. My heart was shutting down and the rest of my organs were failing quite critically. I realised at that point, and my family realised, how in danger I was. I'd be afraid to go to sleep because I didn't know if I was going to wake up. While the nurses and the staff there can be incredibly encouraging and friendly, it's just desperately lonely. When I was told that I was allowed to leave, I was terrified because I knew that the hard work really began then. You're not only trying to act in opposition to your own thoughts, you're also acting in opposition to what majority hold to be true around food and exercise and diet culture. It's incredibly difficult to act against the grain. So throughout the past couple of years, I have had different glimpses into what life could be without my eating disorder. A lot of the time it would just be very small things. I would achieve something and I'd be able to celebrate it, and that would be a real stepping stone for me. I think what's really helped is sort of coming to an inner peace with myself through my writing and time and space away from all the clutter and the busyness that goes on in life. Mental illness is shit. It is crippling. It is limiting. It is fatal. But it does not define you as a person, nor does it have a hold over your life if you choose to say no. There is restoration to be found in the depths of despair, and it is not only me who can find this, it is you. If there is one thing I've learnt from this experience, it is that what we have here on earth is so precious and so ridiculously worth fighting for.
My name is Daniel Goodwin, and I'm an actor, writer, and poet. I don't think people realise when they're standing there thinking, is he violent, is he going to do something? Chances are the only thing that's going through my head is, these people think I'm going to hurt them. I don't think I'm going to hurt them. But I'm mentally ill, so maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then maybe they're right. Schizophrenia is such a subjective condition. There are hundreds of symptoms. Something will happen in real life. Someone gets aggressive, or something unexpected happens. I won't know where I am. I won't know what's happening. Visually, everything will kind of start to twist, and voices are this kind of cacophony, and it just builds and builds and builds. I shut down. It is a difficult illness. You can't expect an immediate fix. Learning to be resilient with this sort of thing is about stretching out the idea of recovery and accepting that it is going to take a long time. You become more patient. You learn to be less judgmental. I am an artist living with schizophrenia. I influence my work with schizophrenia. I influence how I handle my personal relationships. Honestly, psychosis feels a lot like love. Which sounds stupid, like love does. And improbable, like love is. It's not something you live with, rather you live in it. I think that's why love is given to the heart, because it holds together so well. Happiness and sadness and everything in motion. Is learning to just be, is eventual embracement, is learning to breathe without choking on the butterflies in your stomach. Psychosis is a lot like love.
My very first song that I wrote was at 12. It was a goodbye song to my childhood. I was always such a nerd and like a high achiever. And suddenly in year 13, I could not handle stress. Tiniest drop of sadness would be like an explosion to me. I don't know if it was like the brain chemistry of puberty, but it felt like everything was just too much all the time. Just with any teenager, you don't know who you are and you don't know where your place is in the world. Just trying to find a sense of belonging was like really tough. I started realizing that, yeah, I wasn't talking about boys in the same way.
I'll try to turn back time.
Looking back, I wish I had more patience. I wish I knew that I wasn't alone, because a lot of the time I felt like I was by myself. I think just growing up, my main issue was self-harming. For me, it was just like an act of release. And a lot of the times it's a punishment, so you feel bad for feeling bad. So you need a way to like let it out. I got dumped by my first girlfriend, so that was traumatic. And about 3 days after I got dumped, I invited the wrong friend over. He took advantage of my vulnerability and started touching me sexually. That was probably my lowest point because I was already so heartbroken from being dumped, and then to have a friend of like 7 years who I trusted, who was dating my best friend, someone who I like shared almost everything with, to do that to me when I didn't want it. I remember I took a shower straight after and I just felt like cutting off the parts of myself that he touched.
Oh, I will die in sacrifice. Oh, my men, if you be alright.
When that happened, my depression was really bad. I couldn't get out of bed. And it just felt like I was sleeping my life away. And there just came a time where I was just so sick of it. I was sick of feeling groggy all the time. So I went to my GP and I told her everything that I'd been through and that I wasn't coping. And she found me a counselor that helped heaps. By the 6th one, I was being productive again.
I have nothing to complain about. I have no reason to frown.
Music made me feel better.
Be alive.
The lyrics itself can be a way for you to release the feelings that you're keeping inside.
Me to be alive.
I feel like it's quite a universal teenager experience to be shy, to not know where your place is in the world. Especially for other LGBT, it's such an isolating feeling. I do want to be someone they can look up to, because I know when I grew up, I didn't have that.
I'm growing too old.
I want to be heard. I want to be the voice for those who are silenced. And I hope that when my younger self sees me like that, she'll know that she doesn't have to pretend anymore.
This is Te Awariki, my best friend. TA is the most motivated person I know. When he sets out to do something, he actually does it.
This is Josie. She's one of my best friends. She's the ultimate non-conformist. It's like trying to trap wind in a jar. Together, we just fit so perfectly. When I moved to Auckland, my mental health just got worse. I was in a really terrible space. There were 3 things that happened in 1 week. First thing that happened was this audition that I went to. And they were like, sorry, your face is too fat. Like, you're too fat to do this. The next day, my boyfriend at the time cheated on me. And then the last thing that happened, I had to speak at this event. When I got up on stage, I just choked. I was looking at everyone, and I was like, everyone's judging me. I was just like, my confidence is gone. So I felt like that was the last thing. I went back home, went into the bathroom. I was just lying on the floor and I was crying. And I remember looking at my phone and I had a message from Josie and I had a message from my mother, and I just thought to call my mother, and so I rang her. And I'll never forget it, she just said, son, come home, please, can you come home? And then in that moment, I was just like, how could I be so selfish? For my mother, that was the last thing. I was like, my mother and a new friendship that I had made with Josie. Without them there, I wouldn't be where I am today, so, yeah. We met in the bookstore.
On K Road.
I went to the bookstore to get a book out.
I was going more for the aesthetic.
We saw each other and nothing happened.
Yeah.
We didn't think to talk to each other.
I was trying to reach a book. I didn't even need the book. I just didn't want to interact, so I was pretending like I was grabbing a
And
book.
I was kind of walking around that way. It definitely lifted my spirits after meeting her. There's somebody else out there that thinks like me, and there's somebody else out there that understands just my humour. I don't think it was chance that kind of brought us together. I think it was fate. I think we were supposed to meet each other. I think we were supposed to help each other. And today we are still helping each other, and we're going to go a long way, I know we will, because we're determined to do it, and we're determined to do it together. We choose to be happy, and we choose to just live out our truth and do what we want to do and create content that we love. We're both completely lost in this world, but at least we're kind of lost together. That was it.
Oh, you bastard.
Am I right?
I make music for myself and I love it.
Yeah.
I got into rapping and writing because there was no rules and I could use whatever words I wanted.
Am I supposed to make it rain on you, baby? No, 'cause now I be naked on your mind lately.
I did go through a lot of things that were very detrimental to my mental health.
Wearing the pants, the suit, the shirt that you left here.
Everyone really has it, but it's just on different spectrums, and some have it more than others, and some just have trouble coping with life. That's just how it is, eh? It's not yeah.
A majority of the time when I'm feeling sad, depressed, angry, frustrated, I would write raps and spoken word and poetry and...
Look here, in the middle of this cup with the rim sipping drink, maybe.
I've got books and books just filled with all the stuff. I was diagnosed manic depression, I was diagnosed borderline personality disorder, I was diagnosed all these things, and when I first got told them,
I did get to a point where it did take over me.
Notice how I'm thinking about my life and notice how
If I put all my books into a timeline, you could see them get gradually, like, real angry and depressive.
But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
After doing some therapy, I started to realize that once you know the definition of what you have been diagnosed with, it makes a lot more sense.
But it's not. Misfit on the mic like miss this on the night, but like what?
So my coping mechanisms could be anything from avoidance, so I'd go hang out with my friends and avoid what's going on with me, or I would self-indulge, so I would smoke a lot, or I'd feel like not seeing anyone for ages.
So bitch, stop hating. Crazy, always crazy lately.
I spent about 5 months doing not much. It was actually one of the first times where I was forced to be by myself and I was living on my own without anyone around me. It was kind of the first time where I was forced to go deep into my mind, and it was very dark, and I kind of was forced to be in that darkness for a while. I didn't really want to talk to anyone or see anyone. I was just the bottom of a pit, really. If I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have realized I need help. And I can't go through life thinking with this, surely it's not normal.
Must believe I'm a mess when you see all of these demons in my chest.
I started to want to make a change with myself. You can feed yourself lies for years and years, but you'll get to a point where that balloon's gonna pop, and I think that that's what happened with me. I wake up every day going, how can I be better today, and what can I do to not think like the old Reem? And not that there was anything wrong with her, she was just, she just didn't know any better. I want people to know that I am strong, and not just strong like she can do anything, but strong-minded and doesn't give up and super witty and charismatic and a queen.
You're messing with a bad bitch. Yeah.
Initially, it was shock because I didn't think that I would win. Top model. Kind of liked the idea of being a model, but I faced a lot of backlash afterwards as well. I had people calling me names, like, you're ugly, you shouldn't have won. You're a disgusting piece of human. Words really do hurt. After Top Model, I was like 21, 22. And there were 11 suicides in Kawerau. 7 of them were my friends. And to attend so many funerals in 1 year really did some damage to my mental health. When you're under pressure a lot from yourself, especially yourself, you are your biggest critic. And the only answer is to... But it's not. They think it is, it's not. You just have to face your demons. In Paris a couple of years ago, I was attacked. I was followed by a man and attacked. He was massive. He was way taller than me, way bigger than me. And all the intention that he had was to rape me. to take advantage of me under the influence of which I was. I remember there was a poignant moment in time where we both just locked eyes, and he saw fear in my eyes. And then I get one solid hit to his throat. And then I kick him in the nuts. And in doing that, the grip around my neck was dropped. I probably cried for like 3 days. I didn't really give myself time to grieve, and something had to give, and unfortunately it was my mental health. I just crashed. Mentally I crashed, spiritually I crashed, and it was the hardest thing to come out of. I chose to come home because home is comfort and home is where I feel safest. For me, it was just putting my hands and feet back on the ground and reconnecting with my ancestors. I like to be creative. I like to keep in touch with that inner child. By doing so, it sort of allows me to express myself in a way. I could paint like the darkest image, but then on the flip side, I could turn around and paint like the brightest image, and each image doesn't necessarily depict my current state, but more of like a thought pattern that I choose to go on. As long as I continue to be creative, I think my mind frame and my well-being will be okay.
Belonging was like really tough. I had to put words to who I was, and I had to own who I was.
I think what's really helped is sort of coming to an inner peace with myself.
Now, whenever I get those negative thoughts, I can tell myself, no, you're wrong.
It's not something you live with, rather you live in it.
There's somebody else out there that thinks like me, and it kind of made me feel a little more valued.
I wake up every day going, how can I be better today, and what can I do to not think like the old Reem?
Let's just say that you're one committer short of a hangi. That's the easiest way for me to explain my mental health.
Attitude was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.